How can an ISFJ and INFP have a good relationship and be good parents? But before I can answer, please subscribe to the channel so that we can make sure that the Seahawks decide to actually have a good team next year. And I'm really hoping John Schneider can actually do really good at the draft, but who knows, if that's going to happen. It probably will, because that guy is basically a genius. But I don't know. With the salary issues that's going on with the NFL these days, it's going to be crazy. And I think next season is going to be even more of a chaotic NFL season than this one. That being said, for the Super Bowl, go Bucks. Oh, and hit the alert bell so you can get notified when I go live. So yeah, what's up, Ego Hackers? This is CS Joseph for the CS Joseph podcast, and I'm here to answer all of your questions, Jungian analytical psychology, or the four sides of the mind, also known as four sides dynamics. And the source of today's question is a public wizard request at csjoseph.life/wizard, and this comes from Lisa and Yannick from Germany. Which is awesome. So yes, their question: how can an ISFJ and an INFP have a good relationship and good parenting? I think I'm going to read their question a little bit more here. Hey Chase, first of all, thanks for your amazing content. I think you're great and I learned so much from you. I'm in a relationship with an INFP and we are both aware that this is not a high compatibility combination. We've been together for 5 years now and somehow we want to make this relationship work. So if you could give us some relationship advice, some challenges we may have to overcome, and some concrete things we can implement, that would be great. Also, we're expecting a child. We're both 30 years old, so maybe you could talk a little bit about this dynamic, ISFJ male and INFP female parenting a child too, and some challenges that could arise there. All right, fair enough. Well, let's actually do that. So INFP and ISFJ has really strong emotional compatibility, lots of strong emotional binding there, because the FI hero is made to feel good by the FE parent of the ISFJ, so the INFP ends up being really happy as a result, which is pretty good. But they're also the TI child of the ISFJ is like saying, hey, I think highly of you to the INFP, which causes the INFP to feel less insecure because of the TE inferior insecurity, which is fear of what other people are thinking of them, etc. And that can be an issue throughout any relationship with an INFP. But luckily, TI child is there, and there's a consistent amount of emotional support coming from the ISFJ towards the INFP, which can be fantastic. Not only that, the INFP can tell the ISFJ specifically what they value and show appreciation and show gratitude. And specifically for this relationship to be a success at all, the INFP is going to have to be showing gratitude to the ISFJ on a consistent basis, if not basically all the time, and showing and proving via concrete action, appreciation, and gratitude on the reg. Saying thank you, factoring them in on decisions, speaking very highly of the ISFJ to other people, saying how great the ISFJ works so hard, does such a great job all the time. This level of praise is absolutely going to be critical for the ISFJ within the context of this relationship. Although I will say, like, ISFJ men don't necessarily need as much praise as ISFJ women. Now, speaking about the emotional side for the INFP, in order for the INFP to have be getting a good experience from this relationship, the ISFJ is consistently going to have to be meeting those emotional needs, because to satisfy that TE inferior. So the ISFJ is going to be like, I think so highly of you, and literally list out things as to why the ISFJ thinks very highly of the INFP, and is always looking for any and every opportunity to increase the status of the INFP. Now, honestly, I doubt. There's a chance that they may not be ISFJ INFP here. It's possible that this could be an INFJ INFP silver pair, or it could be an ISFJ ISFP silver pair. So there's actually a really big chance that this is actually a silver pair, and someone here is mistyped. So then there wouldn't be any of the soon-to-be mentioned problems. So let's talk about the problems, and that's on the sexual compatibility side. Because both of them are seeking the other person to be wanted, and the INFP woman is never going to feel wanted by the ISFJ man because the ISFJ man has an NI demon, and an NI demon doesn't know what it wants. It doesn't care about what it wants. It just wants to be told what to do. So, and it's interesting, like both of them, would be like wanting to lay bareback in a bedroom situation, and receive an experience from their partner, and that's like having two canvases, and that could be a big issue. Now if Lisa and Yannick, if I'm not describing your guys' relationship, your sexual relationship, now might want to consider you folks actually being a silver pair because it's very it's not really likely that these two types are really coming together because they just don't really have much sexual chemistry, and people usually have relationships with sexual chemistry, and if there is no sexual chemistry, naturally they just kind of go away from those relationships entirely. So something to be aware of, be aware of that possibility here. That being said, if this really was the actual types for the people, this really was their relationship, it would be extremely difficult. I mean, I don't even know how you'd make it work because, the INFP is constantly spending their attention on themselves. The ISFJ is spending their attention on themselves. They're all both trying to get the other person to want them. And the INFP would be, because they are the one who has an NI critic, the highest amount of introvert intuition, they would have to be basically the NI user of the relationship. So that's like talking to, an SE trickster and expecting them to have sexual prowess and expecting them to be on top and really take control of the situation of the bedroom, which INFPs just don't do. They just like to lay there and take it. Typically. That's typically what INFPs do. They just lay there and take it. And especially in this relation, this is an INFP woman, and that's basically what they do. I was coaching an INFP woman just the other day, and she's telling me, yeah, I'm kind of docile, and I just like to take it. I just like to have a blissful experience. I just like to be right there and go for it and have him go for it. And I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, if that's your style and that's what he wants, okay, great. It's all good. But in this case, the INFP is going to have to completely reverse that position and utilize their shadow functions in order to satisfy the insecurity of the ISFJ. Now, the ISFJ can satisfy the insecurity of the INFP pretty well, but the insecurity for the ISFJ is on the sexual side, not the emotional side, and the INFP is not really equipped to handle the ISFJ sexual needs because he's extrovert intuition inferior, he's constantly afraid of not being wanted, especially not being desired or passionately desired in a relationship. An ISFJ man is very turned on when his woman is initiating with him, seeking him out, wanting that shared sexual experience with him and desiring him. But the INFP doesn't really allow themselves to want anything because they're very critical towards what they want, and because of that, it can just turn into a total crapshoot. They don't. It's just hard, and so the ISFJ is just ultimately going to feel unwanted over time. And while they're super mega loyal to the INFP, over time they're just going to grow apart because they're just not there. And then over time, the ISFJ will be desired and wanted potentially by other women, and other women may approach the ISFJ male in public and offer themselves to the ISFJ, maybe even ask out the ISFJ or give the ISFJ the number or whatever, and make the ISFJ feel wanted. And since their sexual needs have been completely ignored over potentially half a decade or more, they'd be very inclined to take up that woman on their offer, which makes them feel like they are ethically justified in cheating. Not saying that Yannick here would be cheating or a dirty cheater. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there's an extreme temptation and extreme pressure under this situation as a result because the INFP woman is not able to meet the sexual needs of the ISFJ man. It's just not happening. He's not going to feel wanted by NI critic. He's not going to feel wanted by NI critic at all. And furthermore, the INFP has SE trickster and is not able to give that, not really able to provide any impact such that the ISFJ is thrilled to even have sex with this person. There's just no thrill to it. You know, it's like, wow, okay, so that was a love tap, great. You know, could you put some more effort into that? Where's your oomph? Well, an INFP is not exactly going to be putting as much effort from an extroverted sensing point of view because they lack extroverted sensing. Because you know, in the ISFJ SI hero is going to be expecting the INFP to give them an experience. But the INFP has SI child and they're expecting the ISFJ to give them an experience. So as a result, it ends up becoming, you know, having a huge amount of sexual incompatibility, which in my opinion will ultimately break the relationship. And as awesome as emotional compatibility happens, you know, let's look. What does emotional compatibility end up creating in relationships, you know, in culture? Well, that's where emotional affairs come from. That's where long distance relationships come from, LDRs, where they end up having these huge emotional bonds, but when it comes down to the sexuality, there's just not really anything there. Another problem as to why these relationships can happen, why these exist, ISFJ, INFPs, because they probably were both churchgoers and they were probably both virgins, and they tried to, like, you know, work it out, and it's all they've ever known, and because it's all they've ever known, they've just made it work. Okay, yeah, so technically, sure, the relationship could work, but statistically on paper it's just really not going to work, and that's like a huge problem. You know what I'm saying? So there's a huge risk. Do I recommend ISFJ INFP be in a relationship, a sexual relationship? Hell no. I don't. And I've actually advised people of this pairing in the past, if they were actually this pairing, because we didn't have the third party present to verify their type. I've said, you might want to split up, but make sure you're not in a silver pair. And Lisa and Yannick from Germany at this point, honestly, I maintain that there's a very good chance that you're actually like a silver pair and not ISFJ and INFP, because statistically that's what would be happening. I think there's an 8 out of 10 chance that you're actually a silver pair and not this relationship. Which, if it was a silver pair, you'd have amazing sexual compatibility and you would have amazing emotional compatibility with a high amount of mutual respect for both of you, and definitely would be a relationship I would condone and support, and I would never advise you folks to split up ever if possible. So just keep that in mind. If this is truly your guys' types and this is truly your guys' relationship, really be careful and watch out for the sexuality starts. Like, the INFP is definitely going to have the self-discipline to, like, literally learn Kama Sutra and take classes on sexual prowess to actually make this work. Seriously, she's going to have to get into the mature feminine, be in female space, and learn from matrons to teach her how to perform better sexually. Otherwise, this relationship is doomed before it begins. A lot of people think, oh, you know, Mr. C.S. Joseph, you're being really shallow about that, but like, no, I'm not. The statistics back me on this one, guys. The studies back me on this one. Like, the reality of the situation is that, you know, men primarily are in a relationship with a woman because they want that beauty. It's got the sexual component to it, and beauty equals pretty plus plus humble, and then, you know, and having that beauty and then also having sexuality at the same time. But if they're not having those needs met, they're not really getting much out of the relationship. They're just not. I mean, you could argue that they're getting, you know, they're having children, and that's great. Having children is awesome. But in that particular moment, you know, the man, you know, in the modern age is not really getting as much in the relationship, especially since women in Western society on a whim can decide if a man is fit enough to be a father or not. So there's a lot of risk there involved. So honestly, if this woman really is an INFP and he really is an ISFJ, I highly, highly, highly recommend she takes classes to increase her sexual prowess while he is as honest, TI child honest, super pure honest, even to the point of maybe even being brutally honest and coming off harsh, but in love, to tell her exactly what he expects, you know, so that the sexual compatibility in some capacity could be emulated or created, even though it's just not really mentally there in, you know, her ego and whatnot. But if he's not communicating what he's looking for, he's setting up her. He could be setting up for her for failure, and that's also bad too. So obviously it takes two to tango. It's important for both these people to handle this issue, but you know, they got amazing emotional compatibility. That's great, but the sexual compatibility here is absolutely terrible. So, like, do your best to figure that out. Seriously, take Kama Sutra classes, take pole dancing classes for the INFP if possible. Understand, like, proper clothing and lingerie and spicing it up, and, like, you know, it may sound weird, but, like, this would be one of the few times I would actually recommend a woman learn how to be a stripper. And not obviously become a stripper, but learn the craft, because that would be absolutely necessary for maintaining this relationship. It would. Otherwise, like, it's doomed for failure. But like I said, statistically, it's likely these people are not these types, and they're actually a silver pair instead. A silver pair being ISFJ plus ISFP, or INFJ plus INFP. One of the two. Statistically, that would be more likely that way. Hashtag Pareto principle. So now in terms of parenting, so in parenting, I have lectures available right now, season 23 at csjoseph.life/members. Become a member, a journeyman level, and just log into journeyman. You get your login emailed to you, and then you can go check out how to how to parent. And we talk about a concept about how to parent, or about Jungian parenting, basically. Wow, I'm really exhausted when I film this. But Jungian parenting has a couple of principles. Just understand that, and I go way deeper in season 23 in the members area and whatnot. And we just released How to Parent INTJs. We're about to release How to Parent INFJs, and then also ISFJs this month, so check that out. But Jungian parenting basically talks about how you have to focus on developing a child's inferior function from the time that they're born all the way till the time that they're an adolescent, and they need to focus on developing their parent function when they're an adolescent. But there is some severe caveats, as a result. The thing is that both of these two types, like with the ISFJ, with both these two types being affiliative and trying to do the right thing, there is a risk of having there being an affiliative echo chamber, and if they have a pragmatic child, it'll be extremely challenging for both of these two, because doing the right thing according to affiliative types is really subjective, and it changes. Like, doing the right thing is in the eye of the beholder, basically, so you never really know. So that also increases the risk in this case. That's not to say that both these types cannot parent a child. Of course they could. But it's really important that the male and the female involved with this as parents are really heavily invested in male space and female space on their journey towards the mature masculine and then the mature feminine as well, so they can bring both of those two things to the table for the child. But again, in order for the child to be developing properly, you need to be targeting their inferior function as soon as you're able to type them. But hashtag watch out, because all of a sudden your child may be presenting their subconscious instead of their ego, and you may not even know what their ego is until they're even in adolescence. For some children, it can be really, really hard to type them. So when that happens, you'll have to be like, okay, well, their inferior function is either this or this, so you're gonna have to go out of your way to develop both as soon as possible to get their inferior function handled. But when they're an adolescent, you will be able to accurately type them, and at that point in time, you need to focus all your energy on the parent function. But you can't do that so easily. But I talk more about how to do that in season 23, where I talk about how to parent each of the individual specific types. So if you are a parent and you're watching this, I highly recommend you watch the How to Parenting lectures. I've been told recently by members of the audience that it's my best work, and it really, really can save you a lot of headaches and really help you build your legacy with your children, with what you're doing and whatnot. So yeah, please go out of your way to check that out whenever you can. Anyway, if you want your type to be verified by me or anyone on our coaching staff, and we'll verify you. We'll use the rapport method and whatnot. And like I said, sometimes we'll go beyond the 30 minutes because we want to know the truth. We want to know what type you are. And we really go out of our way to do that. But if you want to check that out, go to csjoseph.life/CS-verify to check that out, or you can go to csjoseph.life/coaching as well if you want to see that from there. But anywho, folks, I hope I answered your question, Lisa and Yannick, and I hope the rest of the audience is able to gain some really valuable information for this particular type of relationship, etc. So anyway, folks, all that being said, I'll see you guys tonight.